Thank you for attending today, and thank you everyone. And so, what we talked about was more about doing something on preparation for run. But what happens is that most people don't know how to breathe, which is an odd thing. And there are actually, based on various studies and teachings that happen in the sport community, um, a lot of you have even Olympians, athletes that do not know how to breathe properly, and that's something I'll mention later on. And that's why it's important to know the basics. So this presentation will be mostly around the basics of breath work. So if you have any questions or anything at some point, I dedicated some time to asking questions at the end. But if you have any questions at any stage or you want me to repeat something, please interrupt me again as I can see you. So what we'll talk about in this presentation is dysfunctional versus functional breathing, mouth breathing and nose breathing, breath hold training, and some easy exercises that are good to start implementing and that maybe you are aware of. And it's something very easy. You'll see it's actually more based on functional breathing. And my apologies if I just need to take a deep breath at times. You may have known that I got a bit ill lately. So dysfunctional breathing basically is any disturbance in breathing, including hyperventilation or excessive breathing, irregularity of breathing, and any unexplained shortness of breath. The thing is that dysfunctional breathing, I think it's about like 80+% of the population worldwide that have dysfunctional breathing. So to various level, obviously, but people don't breathe well in general in everyday life. And this is what we'll see also in this presentation today, is that the way we breathe right now as we are interacting, or you're just listening to me and looking at the slide, reading the slide, or working out like Arthur, for example, the way we breathe every day will then impact our performance. And very often people think about the way they breathe when they are training or as they are trying to perform. And most people don't breathe properly. Functional breathing, so it's healthy functional breathing that is light, quiet, effortless, and gentle. And it's actually the ideal way of breathing. That's the way we should be breathing most of the time. Of course, not all the time. So if I was to ask you, and you can do it, especially if you're not on screen, but if you're on screen, you can do it as well. If I was to ask you to take a deep breath, you've heard people every day, or you've seen it in documentaries, movies, series, whatever. You hear that, or you've had that in everyday life. Relax, take a deep breath. Most people are very likely to do something very similar to that. And as we'll see, sadly, there are many things that I just did wrong, the wrong way. And that's also the way I was taking my deep breaths in the past when I was trying to relax. So I'll share with you in a few minutes how or what a proper deep breath should be like. And again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to interrupt me, or if there are any comments in the chat that I can't read right now. So dysfunctional breathing is associated with many issues that we have in everyday life. We take breathing for granted. We take breathing as just everybody does it. I've had many times in my workshops people saying, "Oh, you're telling me that I can't breathe then," and how to say no? No, I mean, yeah, you probably don't without hurting your feelings. Um, but people don't realize the impact that breathing has on our everyday life, whatever we do. So, dysfunctional breathing are linked to health problems, and we'll develop that a bit more. Lower back pain, and there's been a study, as you can see, I mentioned it there from 2004, that was mostly on rowers, and 25% of the athletes gave up training because of lower back pain. However, and we'll see that in a couple of slides, the way we breathe will impact just our posture. And a lot of the lower back pain that we hear all the time, everyone, and it's one of the major issues why people go to physios, is back pain. And lower back pain leads people to give up training. And a lot of that is linked to breathing. And we'll see the impact that to breathe properly, how it impacts the body and posture. Ligament injuries also, so they affect that. The musculoskeletal system, sorry, and just to help a bit, I prefer reading a bit more the definition to help you, to give you more easily the definition. So an essential component of human health, in addition to providing the body with structure and the means for movement, and as the endocrine system, it will be stimulated by exercising and interacting with through biochemical signaling, which is impacted by the breath. So because we exercise, all of us use body movement to run, then or just to go hiking or whatever we do, skiing, etc. All of that is impacted if we don't breathe well. It will affect core muscle function. It will impact risk of injury, so more risk of injuries when we don't breathe well. Respiratory disorders that are multidimensional, so it's not just your lungs when you breathe. It will impact your skeleton. It will impact your movement. It will impact your mental health. It will impact so many parts of who you are and what you do and how you do things. And of course, breathing poorly impacts sleep. And sleep, the way we sleep, will impact then your performance. That's actually a discussion we had recently in the community, in the group chat, about how we sleep. I think it was something about how we sleep before a race. And some people that don't sleep, some people sleep very well. There was a bit of a discussion, I think it was about a month ago or so. And learning to breathe better will impact the way you fall asleep or the quality of your sleep. You may, and a part of the discussion that was recently also in the past few months in there over the summer in the group chat was following some articles about that tennis player. I can't remember her name. I think she's number one. And she was with taping. Just she had a tape on her lips. There's also the football player Haaland from Norway, who also talks about mouth taping to sleep, and it's growing more and more. And all of that is to encourage breathing better, because when you breathe better, when you sleep better, you breathe better, you will perform better as well. So that's something to think about. And also for stress, for example, stress management if we don't breathe well, what happens when you breathe, when you're stressed, when you're under stress? You're very likely to breathe in a more shallow way, faster through the mouth, creates more tension. And before a race, we might not realize that, but we may breathe that way. When we warm up, we should warm up also our lungs and the way we breathe before a race, because then it will impact your performance if you race or even if you train, if you don't have any races. But the way we breathe will impact um, all of that. And most people have dysfunctional breathing. And of course, the levels vary from person to person. Do you have any questions or anything at this stage? If I don't hear anything in the next 5 seconds,
You can
I will
continue.
carry
You
on.
can continue. I was just searching on the. So there are no questions on the chat. So everyone is
Cool.
saying no. So yeah, you can continue.
Cool. Thank you. So, mouth breathing, if you notice, and you may not realize it, but most people use mouth breathing. Sometimes it's very light, like the lips are barely open. But when you see someone with the lips barely open, they are mouth breathing. So, what happens when you breathe through your mouth is that your heart rate increases. You will inhale more viruses, more bacteria. There is no filter to the air before it reaches the lungs, and the air will be dry when it hits the lungs. So that will lead also to extra issues to your lungs that you may get, and it will damage your lungs and the alveoli, everything. So crucial parts of your body are not used, and that's what I meant early on by taking a deep breath, or I'll go to the previous slides: injuries, lower back pain, and muscle function. So we need to use our diaphragm, and I have a picture in a couple of slides, but your diaphragm won't be used, and your nasal cavities all around there will not be used either. So if we don't use them, if we breathe through the mouth, I'm not using my diaphragm. Well, I was using it there because I'm used to it, but it's more likely that it will be like that. But my nasal cavities are barely used. So it will build up in bad things, in mucus and everything. So you will have more infections, and you will not breathe properly than when you will want to use your nose to breathe. Also, mouth breathing will lead to a lower tolerance in carbon dioxide or CO2. And carbon dioxide, to a certain level, is necessary to breathe. Now, carbon dioxide is a byproduct of oxygen. So you inhale the oxygen, turns into carbon dioxide, to keep it simple, and that is what you exhale. So if you had any trouble when we were wearing masks during COVID, or if you know of people who struggled wearing a mask, it's usually not because they didn't have enough oxygen. It's because you're more likely to inhale back the CO2 you have just exhaled. And so that's why if you wear an oxygen mask, or if you've done some um, VO2 max tests, it may be a bit more difficult because you will inhale that carbon dioxide quicker. And also, you will have a faster lactic acid buildup. Um, I'm just thinking about, like, also, so how should I breathe? Should I breathe through the nose when I run all the time? I'll get there just in case it's a question that crossed your mind, because that's something that often comes up. So, oh, sorry, nasal breathing. I didn't see the change in the slide. Nasal breathing. So slows down the breath, and it slows down by half. So it's 50% more difficult, less air that comes in when you breathe in through your nose. So that's why, and we live in a society that we want to go for the easiest thing. We don't want to remember our PIN codes with our phones, you know. We don't want, we, from my computer, I just need to press and I don't have to remember my password for my computer, for example. Everything needs to be easier. And we live in a world where everything is faster and has to be now. And we become lazier in every way, even in the way we breathe. Even when we breathe, we become lazier. And it's easier to breathe through the mouth. We get more air in, and we have that feeling that we get that it's good for us. However, there was no filter. And you know the hair that we have that we try to cut um, in our nose actually help filter the air that comes in, so viruses and bacteria. Your nasal cavities, or when you breathe through the nose, it will make the air more humid, so better for your lungs when it reaches the lungs. It will encourage to use muscles that more muscles, so on your face, but also use your diaphragm. So all your core muscles and lower back muscles will be activated better if you learn to use to breathe through your nose. So uses the diaphragm. And something I will repeat a few times, but creation of nitric oxide. So nitric oxide, or NO, is a gas that is a vasodilator, but it can be provided externally. And when you see a doctor or you go to a hospital for pneumonia, COVID, SARS, those diseases, they will provide you with nitric oxide to help open up the arteries and veins so the oxygen will flow with your blood because um, it goes throughout your body through the blood to keep it very simple. And it opens up the veins and the arteries. And when we inhale it, it helps, and it helps to relax as well. And you can't create nitric oxide, or you don't create nitric oxide if you're mouth breathing. However, you do if you use your nose. And also, it increases CO2 buildup tolerance. So, very often, if we gas out too quickly, it might be simply because of low tolerance to CO2, to carbon dioxide. And lactic acid will build up faster if you don't breathe well. Whereas if you open up and if your veins, your oxygen will flow better, the CO2 will take a bit slower to build up. But then when you train and run or jog, let's say, using your nose to breathe, it will be a bit harder, but it will help your body, your lungs, your muscles tolerate CO2 buildup better, and then will impact everything else. And if you use your nose at rest to breathe, so when you're in the office, when you're listening to me right now, or when you're working, when you're walking, doing your shopping, and you carry your bags, you will see, or slide uphill, most people walking will start using their mouth to breathe. So if you use your nose when you're at rest right now, not training, not running, it will improve. Then it will have an impact on your performance, on your sleep quality, on falling asleep, because it will impact your parasympathetic nervous system, so your rest and digest mode, and it will help you relax. So if you're more relaxed throughout the day, then you're more relaxed when you go to bed, and it will help you fall asleep a bit better. And yeah, improves performance during the day or practicing sports. And to give you an example, I talked about taking a deep breath early on. So, what I did was when you ask someone to take a deep breath, and you can try it now, is most people will either be or what happens is that when we breathe, roughly we get about uh, 30 centiliters, yeah, 30 centiliters of air. So a bit more than half a pint of air that comes in. So of course that half pint will come in faster through your mouth than through your nose. However, when you breathe in, your lungs will expand, but when you inhale, your lungs expand and your heart, which is pretty much in the middle, let's say, will have less pace. So it will need to breathe faster, to pump faster, sorry, to pump faster to provide the blood throughout the body and to your cells, to your muscles, everywhere with the oxygen that it needs. And when you breathe through your mouth, it comes in quickly, but it goes out quickly as well. So it barely gets in there that it comes out straight away. So you lose a lot of that oxygen if you breathe through your mouth too much. It doesn't have time to settle. And as I said, CO2 is a byproduct of oxygen. So you will have a buildup in CO2 much quicker than you would have if you were breathing slower. So, ideal um, inhale or taking a deep breath should be more deep. We mean the diaphragm. I don't know if you can see me, but I have a hand on my stomach there. And taking a deep breath should be through the nose with belly first, chest, and actually a longer exhale. So if you inhale for about 4 seconds, let's say, you will exhale more for 8 seconds because exhaling will relax you automatically. And there something that you can do right now and you can feel it. We can see it on the pictures there, the one with the air that comes in. If you put your fingers, you just put them on your lowest ribs and you exhale. And then you take a couple of breaths. So inhale and exhale. And there's no need to press. You just put your fingers, your hands around on your chest like
If
that.
Renaud, if you want, you can just put your screen a little bit down. I'm not sure if you're
Lower?
losing.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know.
like
Can you
that.
see
You
there?
can see it better. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Uh, so there, um, I just have, you see, I'm not pressing, but you can feel your ribs expand. So when you breathe through your belly like that first, and then you expand the chest, but your diaphragm will go down, it will flatten. And when you exhale, the diaphragm will go back up, and you can feel your ribs coming back in. And you can feel it, and it's actually a nice feeling, but you feel your hands coming in and out. I don't know if there's any feedback or if you can feel it or if you have any questions on that, but this is in very simple terms. There's a lot more that happens when you breathe, but the you can feel that your ribs cage is actually impacted. And so I don't know if you did it or if you're feeling it, but even if you relax or in your own time, you can do it. And you can feel your ribs, you can feel different levels on your body. Another mistake also with the taking a deep breath is that a lot of people raise their shoulders, but it creates a lot of tension in the neck. When you create a lot of tension in your shoulders, in your neck, more pain. It leads to more pain, and also it can lead to headaches. So you need to be as relaxed as possible, but exhaling when you take a deep breath is the key. And one last point on this is when you inhale, I said roughly, if we take a slower inhale but a fuller inhale, let's say we'll get a pint of air. And out of that pint of air, 150 milliliters will never reach the lungs because we exhale it straight away. So try to think when you're breathing fast and you're only using chest breathing, it won't spread throughout your body well. That's why you may feel a bit more dizzy quicker because you don't get enough oxygen that comes in. You're pretty much maxed out in oxygen right now. So when we feel that we need to take a deep breath, I just needed to breathe. It's not because you don't have enough oxygen, apart from probably some cases, obviously, but rare cases. But it's not because you don't have enough oxygen. You're usually between about like 96, 97 to 100% of oxygen saturation in your body. But it's more that you don't tolerate carbon dioxide buildup enough. So that's why we were talking about carbon dioxide uh, tolerance. If you inhale but exhale straight away, it will build up in your cells, in your whole body, in your blood, the carbon dioxide. And if you have a low tolerance to it because you didn't train your breath, then it will impact everything that you do after. I hope I'm clear enough. Please don't hesitate if I am not. Breath hold training, a quick thing on that. We could, if we have another session, we can talk about it more, especially high altitude simulation with breath hold that can be done. And I use that, for example, in Ireland. We don't have really high altitude in Ireland. Even though I grew up in the Alps, we don't really have it. So I need to compensate in a way. But breath hold training creates a more acidic environment in the blood and tissues, and because of the increase in CO2. An increase in CO2 will make your blood more acidic. And if the blood is too acidic, think about the fact that it goes to your brain. That leads to depression, that impacts your mood, anxiety, all those issues of modern life, because things are too easy now, in a way. We impact on mind, impacts depression, impacts anxiety, all modern diseases that we create. So if we learn to improve our pH level of our blood by breathing better, it will then impact a lot of things in your everyday life and not just performance or training. And I think that's important as well. The reduction of oxygen available can create a more anaerobic response, so greater exposure to lactate in the tissues. And it's like anything. At first, it may not be easy, like when you're carrying weights or when you go for a run. At first, you can't do a 10K. You might do a couple of kilometers and then you slowly build up. It's the same with training the lungs and breathing better. And that's why also breath hold training can help you. Um, Studies, yes, some studies were done in rugby, swimming, and basketball to show that uh, breath hold training impacted um, and the performance in a positive way. Some of you, most of you, or everyone might be familiar with Emil Zatopek, and I might pronounce his name the wrong way, but who was a great runner in the past. He was one of the first, if not the first, person, marathon runner to use breath hold training. he was holding his breath as he was sprinting. So, breath holding in training can help increase lactate tolerance, buffering capacity, and deoxygenation. So, the way we tolerate the oxygen level going down and replenishing during recovery, how our bodies deal with that. The inability to hold the breath for at rest, so right now, for less than 20 seconds, or for more than 20 seconds, sorry if I read my sentence, shows that you may have a breathing pattern disorder. The thing is that if you're doing it now, you're conscious of what you're doing. If you want to test it now or later, you just need a timer and you take a normal breath, so in and out, pinch your nose, close your mouth, and time yourself. And whenever you need to breathe again, look at your timer or stop your timer and see where you're at. So some people might have high numbers straight away, maybe because you're brilliant and well done to you. But also, there are many athletes, Olympians, that had lower than 10 seconds. So you could be subconsciously trying to take a deeper inhale and lower exhale to hold longer. So try, if you want to test it, keep it as natural as possible as you are breathing right now. And also, creating nitric oxide will open up your airways. We talked about that in a previous slide. So breath hold training, if you do breath hold training, and we won't do much today, I'll introduce an exercise, but pinch your nose, and whenever you hold your breath, it's important to first take an inhale. Many people make the mistake of pinch, stop breathing, but then have a quick exhale after, so it would give something like before they inhale. However, it's very important if you do that to inhale straight away after the breath hold. I hope it makes sense. Um, and I know it's a lot to take in, so thankfully the session is being recorded. So we can go back to it, and I'll see if I can share the slide or whatever, or the exercises I can, if there's a way to share that or to put it somewhere. Maybe Francisco, you can tell us later on how to do it. So the exercises that I wanted to talk about are LSD. That's very important, LSD in breathing. So it's ideal breathing, light, slow, and deep. Short breath holds for warm up and recovery. So before run, to help you warm up a bit, open up your airways, but also after the run, because when we exercise, your arteries and blood vessels will contract a bit, so it will help them reopen a little bit. So it's good exercise to do, and I'll talk about humming based on a study by Eddie Weitzberg. So LSD is the way we should be breathing all the time. This is functional breathing. So LSD breathing, it's light, so it needs to be through the nose, light enough that you barely hear your own breath in a quiet room. So you might be alone right now in the room you're in, and you should barely hear yourself. Slow, basically slow down. If you breathe, let's say 13 times a minute, the average person is about 15 times a minute. But 15 times a minute, try to decrease to 10. Reduce little by little. But slow down your pace when you breathe. Ideal breathing is actually 5.5 breaths per minute, but 6 breaths a minute is great. So if you want to train on that, to slow down, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out is ideal. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out is ideal to help you. And deep, when we mean deep, we mean using the diaphragm, using your belly. using your diaphragm and belly will help with your posture. So it will use your back muscles, your front muscles, everything better when you breathe in everyday life and when you perform, when you train. It will help you. So it will help your posture, it will use your muscles better, and it means a reduction also of uh, lower back injuries, any type of injuries, and you will be more stable as well when you run. There's actually a study that was done. We can talk about that another day if you want, but on the fact that actually people are more prone, or the body is more prone to injuries when we put our foot down the step following the first exhale. So when you start exhaling, that first step there, that's when you're more prone to injuries. Some people went that far in the studies. Uh, so yes, sometimes it's just that stupid and we don't think about it. So light, slow and deep, keep it light enough, slower and deep using your diaphragm first, and then expand a bit. You might feel a bit when you practice that, you might feel a bit of air hunger. So it's that big need to take a deep breath. Try to not fight it, but embrace it. The discomfort, embrace the discomfort, ease into it. If it becomes too strong, obviously take your deep breath, take a few seconds to for yourself, and try again. And you can start by practicing for 5 minutes and then you increase 10 minutes and all. You can do that in bed, you can do that at your desk, when walking, etc. Short breath holds. So take a normal breath in and out through the nose. Closed mouth, they are emphasized a bit more. And just in case, I've been emphasizing my breaths a bit more so you could hear it when I do it. Um, but in and out, pinch your nose with your fingers to stop breathing for 3 to 5 seconds. And inhale. And then you breathe normally for 10 seconds and you repeat that about 10 times. It leads to 2.5 minutes. So it's roughly 3 to 5 seconds. It's roughly 10 seconds in between. And it's a great exercise for warm up and recovery. So the last couple of minutes before you get ready, or as you're getting ready, putting your shorts on and all, do that exercise and it will help you in your preparation and in your warm up. That can be something that can be done to open up the veins and the arteries, and also as a recovery to open them up again so the oxygen flows better through your blood and it will deal with lactic acid buildup better. Last exercise, which is not really an exercise, but humming. So when I mean humming, I really mean so humming will be on an exhale. However, that study from 2002 by A.D. Watsberg, I think, um, showed that there's a buildup of extra nasal nitric oxide that is multiplied 15 times. So when we're breathing or talking right now, and if you're breathing through your nose, you're building up in nitric oxide. If you do your breath hold, as I mentioned right before, you will build up in nitric oxide and open up your veins. However, if you hum like that, or some people asked me before, oh, what if I sing like a melody? It's the same, it's still humming. It will still multiply of up by up to 15 times your um, your nitric oxide. So it's important that if you hum, inhale it right after because you'll have more nitric oxide and it will help. So, humming, or even when you're jogging, uh, that will impact that. So, it's an extra tip on that. And I have one final tip: don't forget to chew. And what I mean by that, very quickly, it's uh, I don't know if you've read the book by James Nestor, Breath, which is absolutely brilliant. But there's been studies that were done, and James Nestor talks about it. And there are YouTube videos I could share the link potentially about that. The way our food is softer, so that's why a lot our jaws retract more and more. That's we are the only mammals that exist. I think there's like 450 or more mammals that exist. We are the only ones with bad teeth, crooked teeth, and all. Actually, our wisdom teeth have a use. It's just because our jaws have reduced. And part of it is because of what we eat. And because what we eat in everyday life, um, or in everyday life, sorry, in training, so gels, liquids, our main intake of food intake or nutrients intake is through easy stuff to eat. We don't use our jaws. So it's important to be able to eat like meat, or if you're vegetarian or vegan, eat raw vegetables like carrots, or if you're none of that, eat chewing gum, chew gum. Use your use your jaw more because it can change slightly your facial uh, shape, but because if our jaws become slightly larger, it will also open up our nasal cavities and also uh, improve the way we breathe at rest, during training, or when we're performing. So just don't forget to chew just in case. And just in case there's the question on should I nose breathe all the time when I'm performing, obviously, and I think we need to use the mouth at times. I checked some videos of Killian who uses his mouth as well sometimes. I saw him. But even Eliud Kipchoge said it when you go too far, when you push yourself a bit more, you run faster and all, um, you will have to open your mouth. So you can train with your mouth closed using your nose, mostly on walks, fast walks, or jogs. Basically, that you can still talk that level or endurance training. Use your nose as much as you can. And then, whenever you need to push yourself a bit more, then use your mouth. It's not strict rules that we need to implement, it's to help. And um, yeah, so it's not something that you have to do all the time. You should be using your nose all the time. No, no, it's um, it's mostly when you're light workouts because then it will impact when you force a bit more. And just in case, last point that I forgot, breath hold training is mostly beneficial. Will have a greater impact on short runs like half marathons or shorter sprints that will have an impact, but also it will have less of an impact on endurance marathons and ultra. It will have less of an impact. However, it will always be beneficial. And we saw, I forgot his name, the guy who finished second at the UTMB this year. He sprinted in the last 100 or so meters. And in that moment, that's where your nasal breathing or breath holds will impact your performance.
Are you talking about the second male finisher?
Yeah, yeah,
Zach
yeah.
Miller?
The American, sorry,
Zach
yeah,
Zach Miller? Yeah,
yeah, exactly that.
Zach Miller.
And that's the last
Yeah, I know these
slide.
guys. If you want, you can just stop sharing just to see you
Yeah, I'm
in full
just
screen.
there you go.
So, is there any question that you'd like to ask to Renault? So, Inaki, let's go. Iñaki, not Inaki, Iñaki. Let's go.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my question is about what you said of taking breath in less seconds than you let it go out.
Yeah.
When I run, I instead of looking at my heart rate, I control how I'm feeling with the breathing. I
Mhm.
know it, depending on how I breathe, how I'm doing it. But I use asymmetric breathing, as you
Okay.
say, that because of an article I read, the danger thing. And I take it for example, if I go easy, I take air for 5 steps and let it out in 4.
Mhm.
So you told that it's better doing it the other way. I don't
So
know.
no, yeah, it's the thing is when you inhale, your lungs will automatically have take more space, right? So your heart will have to beat faster.
Uh-huh.
So that will increase also your fatigue. So it's not, and I'm not saying in any way that's the way everybody should breathe. Maybe sometimes I mispronounce I said certain things. It's not especially like, oh, everybody breathe like that. It's more some tips that you can try and implement to the way you're doing. So thank you for asking that, Iñaki. It's it's a good reminder. But try it. It's just being aware that when we inhale
Mm-hmm.
more, our heart will automatically, even if you do it right now, your heart will beat faster and creates more tension. And the signal that is sent to your brain is stress.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When we exhale longer, it triggers, I didn't mention it, but something called the vagus nerve. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Um, Basically, the best way, quickest way to do it is cold water on the face. That's one of the best triggers to trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, so to relax you. And the studies have shown that when you, I don't like to start a sentence like that. It sound like a prick, but when you exhale, um, a bit more, a bit longer, it will trigger your vagus nerve, and so your parasympathetic nervous system will send a signal to your brain that everything is fine. Because the first thing you'll do when you're under stress is, I'm exaggerating, but it is actually breathe faster to get some oxygen in. But actually, it's low tolerance to CO2 at that moment that we're not thinking about when we should actually exhale. So when you run, you could also do 50-50 in your inhale, like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, or 3 steps in, 3 steps out, whatever you want. It's just an extra tip that you can try and see if it works for you more than everybody should do it like that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
just in case, well, thank you for asking. It's a good reminder. Something we talked about with Francisco the last time. Just in case where we're sensitive, also when we breathe, I forgot to mention it. Um, the skin inside our nose, inside our nostrils, is the same as the skin on our genitals. So that's why it's trigger the way when you have a moment with your partner or something. That's why we breathe differently. So that's why it's sensitive, and that's why the way when we use the nose, it will trigger some senses that are more that will impact more your body. The stress, what you want to do, you want to pee when you're stressed very often, or go to the toilets, is because the muscles relax the way they can.
This is the
So yes, very
this is the type
sensitive.
of
Mm,
information
yeah.
that you can share with your friends, and they will say, "Oh my God, you are a genius!"
Very useful for a transplant.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. But
So,
thanks for asking.
if is there anyone with questions to ask Renault? If you can talk, feel free to write on the chat, and I will make sure to ask the question to Renault. Um, we might do a second lesson on breath work. Take into account that Renault has so much knowledge to share. But I would like to ask you a question, which is, and sorry about the barking. Um, if you share that the short hold breaths, it's good for
Mhm,
warming up and also for cooling down.
mhm,
Um, is there any, and knowing that the nose breathing, it's like we can call it as like the functional breathing
mhm.
for, is there any daily routine that people would can do in order just to improve their like general breathing capacity? Because I know that there are so many apps about breath work, meditation, and so on and so on. But if you had to suggest one daily routine, like 2, 3, 5 minutes, whatever that everyone can do to help just to improve um, their breathing capacity, what would be that suggestion?
It's actually a great question. Because like very often most people, so they have that idea of like breath work, and I think we talked about that last time. But breath work, you need to be on Instagram, and you need to have your beach and your sunset, and you need to have your Buddha statue next to you, Himalayan lamp, a salt lamp, and things like that. That's not breath work. Breath work is the way you adapt to a situation in life. Right now, the way you're breathing, it's under stress. When you're running, you get people get text messages and get freaked out. There's even a syndrome that has started to people. We don't know how to. I mean, breath work instructors know we don't know what to say too much about it, but it's called the email syndrome. And the email syndrome is people that actually stop breathing when they're dealing with emails. They hold their breath as they're dealing with emails and they don't realize it. So I would say the best thing would be to the LSD one, because that's the way we breathe all the time and that will impact then whatever you do after. Uh, and a lot of people will say maybe um, I don't have time for that, because a lot of people think breathing exercises, breath work, think, oh, I need to take time out of my schedule and I don't have that time. Whereas breath work is now. It's how you adapt to the situation. You don't have to take, yes, it's good. There are some many exercises. I teach the Wim Hof method. You may have heard of it, some of you. But the Wim Hof method, you need to take time out because it's hyperventilation. You can't do that at your desk. You can't do that. You would look like complete idiot. But breathing in a meeting, if you're bored or something, do that LSD because it's anywhere, anytime. And what I would do if I hear that a lot, I don't remember to do that. Just, well, we have also those devices can be great in a way that you set a reminder every hour to spend 2 minutes or just to breathe. So automatically, if you say it, you will spend the next minute or two thinking about your breath, and automatically you will start implementing it to your daily life. And then for training wise, I would say the short breath hold is great. I use it when I walk my dog. So you've seen pictures of my dog. I like to display my dog. Um, but when I walk him in the morning, I do short breath holds and it unblocks my nose straight away. And so that's great exercise for warm up recovery and also for everyday life. I use it at that time, for example. Um, just keep in mind that some people could get offended. One morning, one guy I was doing it thought, just like, "What you doing, mate?" or something, because I thought he was stinky, probably early in the morning, but all I was doing is my breathing exercise and I ignored him and kept walking. But that's that's the only thing you could think about. But if you're at your desk, you can do it as well. You can do it the same as your desk. You can do it as you're walking. Walking will have a bigger impact in that you will not hold your breath as long as you're creating
Mhm,
movement and energy.
mhm.
But I would say best one and would be LSD to begin with, and then
The
set
short wave, yes.
reminders to do it. Or if it's easier, try to think about it as first thing in the morning when you wake up, to spend a couple of minutes, 5 minutes in bed thinking about doing it. And when you go to bed, 5, 10, 15 minutes when you lie down, trying to relax before sleep, think about it.
Okay. So let's close this session. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to prepare this presentation.
Thank
It
you for
was
having
super
me.
valuable. For those who have joined, thank you so much for being with us. Let me just take the time to remind you that we will be back with one more community talk in 2 weeks. So November the 28th, and we will talk about nutrition. After talking about breathing, we will talk about nutrition, and for that event, for that community talk, we will try to make it more. Well, it's a different kind of format because just following on the conversations that we have on our Telegram group. The idea is for everyone to share their experience and just try to promote a co-creation thing by sharing your stories, by sharing your experience. Once again, we are recording this event. We'll make it available on. So we will update this in our community headquarters on Notion. I will ask Renaud to share the presentation. Then you can just take your time to read. And again, thank you so much. See you in a minute on Telegram. Thank you so much for joining. Renaud, again, you are the best. And
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
have an amazing day. And we see you on Telegram. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks.
Bye. Gracias.
Bye bye.
Thank
Ciao.
you, Renaud.
Ciao,
Thank you,
ciao,
everybody.
Hugo.